what does the word influencer mean to you?
Oh, yeah. As long as you go ride motorcycles, you're A-okay in my book.
Hello and welcome back to the Ben Motorcycle Adventures Podcast, your hub for everything off-road, dual sport, and adventure motorcycle. My name is John. I will be your host. This is episode 32, Ben Motorcycle Adventures Podcast. Thank you for joining, and as always, thank you for listening. We're back. Took a little bit of a break. I've got a bunch of tours and rentals throughout the state of Oregon here lined up over the next few months. So we got the bikes prepped. But we're back with Jason Gearld from Phoenix Handlebars. That's at Phoenix Handlebars on Facebook and Instagram, phoenixhandlebars.com on the web. But Jason's here to talk to us a little bit about his background, his time in the industry, and of course his brand at Phoenix Handlebars. So without further ado, Jason, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Born in Indiana, not really a hotbed of motocross activity, although a lot of racing with IndyCar and all that kind of stuff. But I was out in the country, and there were two guys at my school, and they rode moto, and I just thought they were just really, really cool. And I remember my mom bringing home the June 1985 Dirt Bike magazine, and I burned that thing up cover to cover. That was where it all started for me, was like in that magazine. And there was a motocross track down the road from us. And I remember I just sit out there on Saturdays hoping that bikes were going to the race. And I knew nothing about it, but I just became in love with motorcycles then and there. I guess I would have been around 8 or 9 and got a bike and started motoing around the yard.
What was your first bike?
1985, little Honda XR80. I'm somewhere in the realm of being, we weren't rich, but my parents always, got me cool toys. I always had cool toys growing up like that. So in hindsight, I'm pretty stoked, that they took really good care of us and always got me cool things like that. So lucky kid.
Okay. Who were, when you're flipping through the pages of these magazines like we've all done, who were some of your heroes?
Ricky Johnson. Ricky Johnson was first one because he just had that style and the mullet flaring out the back of that lid. That was too cool for school. I always gravitated towards those kind of guys. I mean, Jeff Ward was rad. But again, I was an RJ guy, and back then it's the off-road scene was never really all that. They weren't the cool guys. So I definitely was young and more infatuated with the motocross side of things. And then quickly fell in love with Fox racing because of RJ and all the things that were Fox, which, as you know, becomes another little stepping stone to everything in my career. So.
Yeah, about RJ, I actually listened to a interview the other day, and I think it was with Pete Fox, but he actually credits, RJ with helping build that brand, maybe even more so than an MC.
Oh, yeah.
For instance. But yeah, he made it tough on me as a kid, and I told him this the other day on the phone, man. Back in the 80s, I was a big-time Jeff Ward, Ron Lachine fan, and he was, I think more times than not, coming out on the top of that. But coming full circle, he had that awesome show, Epic Rides. He's a great ambassador for the sport. And I just really respect that he got out there and raced all those designations too, man.
Yeah. It is cool to hear that he's kind of made his comeback. These guys that, he fell, I don't want to say fell out of moto, but I mean, he'll tell you that he got away from it. He was doing, doing more car related stuff. And it's really bitching to hear the cat, back talking moto. It's say we all love him. It's kind of like meeting Bradshaw recently, seeing him like back in the industry. I was lucky enough to talk to him at the AIM show these last 2 years. And he really appreciates just like how much like people still, admire him. And I don't think like necessarily from an egotistical standpoint, as much as like he just thinks it's just cool that people, he still matters to all these people. I dig it.
Yeah, he was another polarizing figure. Every time I think of Bradshaw, I think of this. There was a Supercross in Charlotte years ago, and the track was, I think it was kind of all sand, and Bradshaw used to just rail there.
Yep.
You brought up Fox. Now I think you started working there in 2000, but how did you get into the industry, and what else have you done since you entered that space?
All right, I'll make it as quick as I can, brother. So, Indiana, went to Purdue University for a year, and I thought that I would be an engineer, but then I realized I'm not very smart and not like you. And there's this really, really bitchin' shop that I grew up going to as a little guy, and my mom would take me up there, and it was called Stoughton Cycle. So Stoughton was just a parts and accessory store. Wilma and her husband ran it. And I used to get to go in there, and my mom would give me 15 minutes to look at everything. And it was, back pre-internet days, they had everything that was bitchin' was there. And that was what made it so cool. So after my illustrious 1-year college career came to a crashing halt, Wilma hired me to just be one of the little workers. But we took it so very seriously, even back then. Like, we were like a little destination store. So I have to credit an absolute ton to her, how she taught us, how we took things seriously from merchandising and just wanted our store to look cool and all that stuff. So then the indie trade show started happening. I started there just as the last Cincinnati show happened. Once it switched to the indie show, now I had all these industry people who would come to Indiana for that one weekend for the indie trade show. And I was lucky enough that I kind of connected with a lot of those people. And Wilma used to let me call. I used to talk to Ron Henson of Henson Clutch Baskets. Uh-huh. He used to be my Friday phone call when he worked at Pro Circuit, because they had Free Freight Friday. And so I would call Ron to place my Pro Circuit order, and we would just sit there and just sort of BS. And then he told me that he was leaving Pro Circuit because his dad was starting a clutch company. And I remember thinking oh, that should be pretty successful. Rolled my eyes.
20, yeah, look at him now.
20 plus years later, it shows what I know. And we still laugh because we were just talking the other day about Free Freight Friday. And that's kind of how my connection started with meeting people on the other side. And because I grew up out there in the Midwest, I lived in my magazines. And back then the magazines used to do a really cool job of showing industry people. So I knew a lot of the people behind the scenes, like the Greg and Pete Foxes and the Jim Hale from AXO. These names always resonated with me because I was never going to be fast enough to be the Dogger or RJ, but I might be able to be one of those industry people, but I never thought that it would actually truly happen. You grew up in Indiana, most of the time you've never ventured west of the Mississippi River. And so the idea of moving to California and working for your dream job was never really in the cards for me, or so I thought.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you about that. What, in my opinion, and I think most people's opinion, SoCal is the industry hotbed. And I've seen you've gone out on track days at Glen Helen, races here and there, promoting your product. What's it like living down there, in an area where you have so much access to the industry and tracks like that? You
mean living in a place where when you and I get done with this, I might go mountain biking and there would be a chance that I could run into either Simon Cubby or Johnny O'Mara, on my local trails? That's still weird to me. It's I'm still forever, 20 years that I've lived in California, there will forever be this kid that grew up in the magazine, living in Motocross Action and Dirt Rider and all those magazines, idolizing these guys. And now, like you said, you live down here it's not the hotbed that maybe it once was, like in, you know, the 90s and 2000s, now that so much more of our industry is starting to move out of here, but it's still pretty wild for me to just, you know, think like Roger DeCoster lives 3 miles down the road and I might run in the man like at the grocery store here like later today. It's like, that's still an odd thing to like think that would happen, but it could, you know. It's like, yeah, when I go to like ride at a place like Glen Helen, and it's one of those places where it's iconic, and I'm like, yeah, you have to come ride Glen Helen. I don't want to ride with you because I don't really particularly care for the track, but you kind of need to say that you have to have ridden up those hills and down Mount St. Helens at some point. You have to. It's just too bitching. So,
right on. For a long time, that was kind of my dream. I was in pre-pharmacy with over in the valley here, and I was like, man, I'm gonna become a pharmacist. I'm gonna move to SoCal, and I'm gonna ride motocross tracks every day. And then I went to Race Tech in Corona for about a week, and things changed. A little bit busier, a little bit faster pace than I think I want to deal with.
It's different. I think I'm a West Coast guy these days. I could live that simple life. No ifs, ands, or buts. And I always tell my wife, when I do, we will have acreage and there will be a motocross track on the front and back side of our house. So she's agreed to that. We're going to have like what's the Disney movie Motocross. I want that track that wraps around and then some single track. Like I said, maybe we move back to Montana and get like 1,000 acres. 1,000 acres of single track.
I tell you, the taste I got in Montana last summer was great. That's definitely a place that I got to at least go back and visit. Maybe we'll relocate.
If I could tie in my Montana thing, so that was what, unless like you already had that like queued up, that was how I kind of left Indiana finally. Was I'm working at a shop in Indiana. I went on a trip to Montana and I fell in love with the mountains. Like I said, a lot of people back in the Midwest just never leave west of the Mississippi. We just don't venture that way very often for whatever reason. And so I ended up moving to Montana on a whim, like in my early 20s. And I was like, dude, screw it. I'm going to figure it out. And I did. And I ran a shop called Team Bozeman up there in Bozeman, Montana. Fell in love with the state and will always have a soft spot in my heart on a handful of reasons. But the other one was that's where I was when I got a phone call about being able to go work for Fox Racing. And I think had I never moved from Indiana to Montana, I don't think I would have ever made the move from Indiana to California. So Montana was not only an awesome place to live, but it also was kind of that catalyst that made me go, oh shoot, you can make it. You'll land on your feet. You'll figure it out.
Who knew Montana would be a launch pad for you in the industry of all places?
Yep, I know. As I say, I will always have a soft spot in my heart for that place right there. So.
Right on. Okay, I want to talk about, it's time to talk about Phoenix Handlebars. This is your business, and first things first, where did the idea come from? You're going to manufacture handlebars and sell handlebars. How does that idea come about?
I was working, I got to go back after Fox, I went to a place called Hammerhead Designs.
Yep.
Hammerhead makes the shift levers, brake pedals, all that stuff. That was a spot that like let me kind of like go from being more of a cog in the machine, like at Fox, where now all of a sudden I'm part of a smaller team where I got to be a lot more, integral, like into like the everyday business, like doing just all the pieces and parts. Fast forward, I end up like leaving there to go work for MSR, Malcolm Smith Racing, as the brand manager, but for their hard parts division, which kind of nicely tied in with what I was doing at Hammerhead. So now I've got this working more for an apparel company for Fox. And then the last two places I was doing hard parts stuff. And we had taken the marketing direction with MSR rather than as a moto guy, like there were all those years they spent sponsoring the Guy Coopers and Michael Araccos and Kevin Wyndham's. And while being an okay apparel company, we're really never top tier. You're never going to be like the Foxes, the Thors, Troy Lee Designs. It just wasn't seen that way. Well, credit to Phil Davey. He said, we have Answer, we have MSR under the same roof. we made Answer become the more motocross, supercross marketing focused brand. And we took MSR and we turned it back into what its roots were. Malcolm Smith was an off-road guy. I mean, he loved the motorcycling through and through. It didn't matter what genre. So that's kind of like what we started doing with the brand as a whole. On the hard parts, I started like really loving this idea of making the marketing be towards the everyday rider. We're not all racers, and there's nothing wrong with racing. I mean, we've talked a lot about it in the first part of the podcast, but I think it's really bitching to kind of make heroes out of the people who just ride because they love riding. And so we were taking the marketing direction that way. And unfortunately, that was like when the higher ups at MAG decided to sell off the brand, and Malcolm Smith Racing went away, and that always bumped me out. So with the other handlebar and grip companies out there, I kind of felt like that's what they were doing. They're like aiming their marketing at that supercross racer, that Eli Tomac, Ryan Dungey. And while there's nothing wrong with that, it's like I wanted to kind of continue what I thought we were building over at MSR. And that's to tell the story of the people who just love the ride for the sake of riding, who aren't collecting paychecks and maybe not even getting a trophy because they don't do anything more than just weekend warrior with their buddy. And so that was why handlebars. I mean, I love the handlebar and the grip thing. I always have since the Renthal days. But while the product is important, I feel like the story is even more important.
Okay. Something I noticed on your website, Handlebars Simplified. What does that mean?
If you spend any time looking down through all the bins, I think it becomes pretty overwhelming between everything with the different widths, the different heights, the different sweeps. And then there's normally 3 other measurements that get shown that, are important to somebody who's maybe building a cool custom bike. For the most part, people don't need all these darn options to try to sift through. So I wanted to simplify it down to basically just 4 height options, and everything else from there is going to you're going to, whether you're a weekend warrior or whether you're a racer, they're fine. You're going to be good. They're all 800 millimeter width with a 57 millimeter sweep. That's pretty standard. If you look at everybody else's, there's going to be give or take. There's definitely different options, but it becomes really overwhelming for somebody new. Seasoned veterans have a hard time. And I know because so many people hit me up and go, I don't know what bars to get. And if a seasoned veteran is struggling to figure out what to put on their bike, what is a newbie going through? It's really overwhelming. So I wanted to bring the sort of an in and out burger type of thought to shopping for handlebars. I mean, we're not all the same. And there's definitely, if for some reason, whatever Phoenix Handlebars offers isn't where you need to be, well, no problem. Renthal, Pro Taper, they crush it. There's a ton of good options in there. Not by all means enjoy it. They make good product. But for the people who are not really wanting to go through all that, I want to simplify it down and make the purchasing process be just a lot easier. And I promise you, it's say whatever I give you, it's not gonna magically shave 10 seconds off your lap time.
Oh man. Well, I'm out. I don't.
yeah.
No, I've got a set of bars on the 450. I really like them. I like the fact that you've laser etched, some of the millimeter marks. If you want to cut them down or whatever, that's pretty straightforward. Like you said, there's just it's a fairly simple process. You don't have to read through a bunch of charts and graphs to figure out what the rise or the sweep or anything like that should be. So I really appreciate that. No crossbar, and then you're offering both 7/8 and 1 1/8 bars, correct?
Correct.
And then what else? You guys got grips, you got some swag. What else you got in there?
Kind of along the same lines as far as trying to keep it really simple. There's there isn't a lot more like right now. I kind of felt like if you're going to be, if you want to like be in that market, I don't want to confuse people by like offering a ton of different things. Now, when I close my eyes and picture the brand down the road, I've got a lot of ideas, but they all still stay in that control group, like still expanding upon stuff with like, different grips, different bar offerings that at some point, levers, hand guards, that kind of stuff all seems very fun, but I don't think like you want to like try to confuse your customer by like going, hey, we do handlebars, but we also do, foot pegs and front fenders. Like, like, so yeah, I like
started to cover the front end of the bike now.
Yeah. I want to like say, I'm gonna keep it simple, man.
All right. Yeah, I was going to ask throttle tubes, purchase something like that. If that's coming down the pipe, or if you're just going to stay in this lane.
No, I see myself. I close my eyes, like say, and I see all that stuff like coming, at some point. Like say, I want to do it when we can do it and do it right. Like say, I'm not about. Well, I always tell people we didn't reinvent handlebars. Mother Nature basically has you kind of set up with like your arms are already this wide, and I'm not magically inventing like some new material that bars haven't been made out of. So I'm not the engineer that the guys over at that Fast Company are. That's rad. I don't have any desire to like go down that path. Like say, I just want to make sure that like say, right, that's an elaborate bar. They're doing good. I'm just going to like continue to like, we want to make great product, keep it clean, tell a good story, make it be a brand that resonates with people, and know that like say like when they get it, they don't have to sit there and like go, was this thing made out of tin can aluminum? And like the first jump I hit, they're going to wrap around my radiator. It's like, no. As you saw, I was talking to a friend earlier today, and I was like, when you're a new company like us, I'm sure there's plenty of uncertainties of people like wondering, well, is it actually a good product? It's like, I feel like, we put up good photos that make it look cool and sexy and stuff like that, but that doesn't tell you how it works. So in that case, that's where third party endorsements and guys like yourself out there running it and going, hey, I'm stoked. I'm happy. Thanks, Jay. That's what makes me happy.
Yeah, it's got to be tough to compete against, and you probably don't consider yourself competing against Renthals and Pro Tapers. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they've been around a long time. People trust that brand, so it's going to take you a while to build that kind of trust. But I like what you do. Every photo, every web page, you're telling a story. Really nice copywriting, and yeah, I really appreciate that from a marketing perspective.
I'll go back like the little takeaways that you get through life. Wilma, when we used to work at Stoughton's, used to say we weren't competing with the store down the road. We were competing with other forms of expendable income. For us, there was a place called Galleons. I think it later turned into like Dick's Sporting Goods. I always still say we're competing with losing our riders to like golf or bass fishing or something like that, because if we lose like one guy has a bad experience at a local shop or just finds that like working on his motorcycle is just too much of a pain in the ass, and all of a sudden he's like, I was going to go riding this weekend, but I don't have time. I'm just going to go hit, golf balls. And all of a sudden now his buddy's like, I was going to go golfing, but I was going to go moto, but John's going to go hit golf balls. I'll go with him instead. And all of a sudden we didn't lose one guy. We lost him and his like three buddies, to another sport. And so my whole thing is like, dude, whatever we could do to like make sure we keep like dudes riding. If Renthal and Pro Taper like sell a ton of bars, well, good for them. That means like there will be plenty of extra people that'll be out there like shopping Phoenix handlebars too. But if all those guys decide to go golfing instead, well, either Renthal, Pro Taper, or Phoenix handlebars will be selling mini bars, right?
Sure. I think if the market's strong, if the industry is strong, Phoenix Handlebars is strong, Ben Motorcycle Adventures is strong. If those things are on a decline or we see a recession like we did in 08, 09, that's gonna impact business.
Yeah. So my whole thing is like when I put together the social media, the marketing. It's like, I always tell people, it's like, I'm just a handlebar company. I'm not the hero. The hero is our riders. That's the hero of this story, because they're the ones who on Wednesday night after dinner, like they just did like little, homework with like little Susie or little Billy. They've like did dinner. They need to go to bed, worked a 40-hour, 50-hour work week. And somewhere after all that, they decide to go out to the garage to do an air filter, which nobody enjoys doing air filters, but they do it because they want a moto on Saturday and want to be prepared when they want to go out and go hit the trails on Saturday morning. And damn it, that's the hero. That's the hero to the story, because that person loves moto so much that they're willing to go out there and get their hands all greasy and dirty, before bed. And that's awesome.
That's half the battle. I think we're heroes because we're running around on $10,000 bikes with, $1,500 suspension setup, $300 worth of tires. You know what I mean? When you roll one of these things together, you've got a $15,000, moving chassis. I think we're the heroes, not the guys out there riding them for free.
Totally, man. Like I say, and the thing is I feel like there's been some groups out there, like social media has kind of made it sort of hip and cool to like even have like an old 85 XR 350. Like, I mean, we used to like laugh at some guy with a jalopy of a motorcycle, and now I don't give a shit. It's like, dude, I'm just pumped that guy is out motoing and he's having as much fun as anybody on that $15,000 bike. It's like, he's still pumped, and I'm like, I'm pumped for him. Thanks for going to riding. And it's like, because that guy still has to have tires, and he still needs a spark plug, and he still needs oil, and hopefully he's hitting his local dealership up for that stuff.
Vintage is in. I want to get me a KX500. My dad used to ride KX500s all the time, and I got to ride one when I was like 12 or 13, one of his, and I want to restore one and take it out here in the desert and, do 120 miles an hour on it, see what she's got compared to these modern bikes. I got to get one someday.
Yeah. I'd say like suck it up before they all, get sucked up elsewhere.
Yeah, I almost bought one last year. I just thought it was a little bit too steep for what it is, but I'll find one. I'll find a treasure here somewhere.
Yeah.
Hey,
I dig it.
Wanted to ask, I've been kind of dying to get somebody on here that's thinking about things from a marketing perspective, but social media, you think it's good or you think it's bad?
I think it's are you talking from like a business standpoint, personal standpoint, or like all inclusive?
All inclusive.
I mean,
unless you've got to take either way.
No, I mean, I like it on a personal side. I mean, I like doing photography, and I feel like I kind of pride myself in putting like good photos out, whether it's, of my dogs or my kids and, family related stuff. I enjoy it. I think it's hard to put it out and not like look like you're trying to like be a narcissistic, like, hey, look at me. But, and that's the part that sucks, because I mean, I think inevitably that's kind of what you're saying. But at the same time, I enjoy putting up the photos of my family, and my wife and I like lay in bed at night and we'll flip through like Instagram, and it's almost like a walk down memory lane. So that part I think is really, really cool. I'm old, man. I'm 40 some years old, so I can't speak like what it's like to be one of our kids, like right now, and what they must go through, like in terms of social media and what becomes influential to them. I have no idea. It's like things have changed so much. And from a business standpoint, I worked at Bonnier, which was the magazine publishing company, which has like Motorcyclist and Cycle World, Dirt Rider. And that was tough, because it's like you're sitting there trying to sell like print ads, and they're all telling you, it's like, hey, print's dead. We don't need you. We'll just push out our own social media. And to a certain degree, you're like, yeah, I guess I get it. You're right. So, here I am as a startup company. And I mean, you see what I put up, and coming up with the content every day becomes really, really challenging to always have something that's cool and compelling. And one of the things that I guess I look at, it's like, that's you telling everybody like how great you are. I think it's still important to have the magazines, and I know print has definitely fallen off the wayside, but it's real important to me to like have a relationship with those companies that were out there trying to do good work. I mean, we just lost Transworld, which blows me away. They were crushing it, and they're gone. Poof. One whole magazine, website, moto series, gone. And granted, Don Maeda is trying to, he's trying to like resurrect it all like as best he can, like under his own name, but the brand equity that was within Transworld is gone. And and it's like, so I know you asked only us might be about social media, and I kind of went off the reservation there, but to me I think it's all related. Ultimately I think social media is rad. Had it not been for social media, I wouldn't be maybe your friend like we are today. So I have to say that in that case, it's like, yeah, it's absolutely awesome. I've met some really, really cool cats, like Rick Estrada from, and I mean, there's countless other ones that I've got that are based like on people I've never met face to face, but we have a good relationship thanks to social media.
Yeah. I hear a lot of people weigh in and say, it's not good. We're spending too much time on our phones, so on and so forth. But we've just shifted that direction. And I love social media. And I guess what people don't know about me is I just like to take photos. It doesn't really have anything to do with anything else. I enjoy going out and taking pictures of landscapes and sharing them with people that, in different parts of the world. I'd love to see what somebody's doing in Utah today, or I don't know, Nicaragua, for instance. I mean, it's just cool to kind of take a glimpse into someone else's life. But
well, I think when you think about adventure biking, and dual sport, which I know is a huge part of your listener base, I mean, it's everything. Had it not been for maybe social media, what would have been the forum for people to live, say, in Kentucky, to ever get jazzed out about like seeing photos about like riding like up in Bend, Oregon, and like going, dude, I got to get over there. That looks like a damn good time. It's like, would they have seen it in a magazine? No, because there were no magazines that were ever covering, like adventure biking and stuff like that. I mean, and not to the degree that we have today. So I feel like some of those amazing photos that we see both on your friends and my friends almost drive people to probably say, holy shit, I want to go there and ride. It becomes more of a destination again. I think social media would be probably the catalyst that's made stuff like that happen. I mean, sure, look at like look at like the pictures like a Jocelyn puts up. It's like, man, I wish I could go there.
Yeah, that happens to me every day.
Yeah.
Every single day. Costa Rica, Iceland, Alaska. I want to go to all these places.
Now, all that being said, I do want to figure out how do we get our kids. The world's changed. So forget that where everybody's going to put their iPhones down for forever. But is there a way that like we can still get that excitement back to kids that like say like that they want to go moto, that they want to go like ride their motorcycle, like say it's fine. Like say, go ride your motorcycle and sit there like on your iPhone, Instagram out some photos, no problem. But at least you went and motoed. So
yeah, I wonder if we're on this pendulum and at some point social media shifts people back to getting outside and doing activities more so than we are now.
I sure hope, man. But it's I think as a parent, I've got a 17-year-old boy, 15-year-old girl, and a soon to be 9-year-old boy. And, it's like, and I try all the time to like, my weekends are always spent figuring out what can I do to like help get them out, because left to their own devices, like figuratively and literally, they're not going to want to do any of those things. Part of it's me being merely a teenager. So I get that, but given the thought of like going, oh, I'm going to like play on my Xbox, or I'm going to go ride my mountain bike and up and down hills and get sweaty and tired. It's like, no, they're going to choose Xbox. But if I can be the guy who gets them out of the house, and I think that's, responsibility of a parent sometimes these days more than it used to be, because there's too many other distractions, is to be like, hey, I've got to be the one to get them to go play.
Right on. Hey, another social media question for you. This one kind of off the cuff. what does the word influencer mean to you?
Oh, yeah. Let me think. Let me think like how many times everybody that I've heard, both from Hammerhead, MSR, and now Phoenix, like, oh, if you like send me some stuff, I'll post something up and we'll get X amount of likes. It's like, it doesn't work that way, man. It just hasn't. I've given away so much stuff through all those companies, through these three brands, that I haven't seen anything that turns on the water faucet. Now, to say that it's not getting eyes on product, no, that would be naive. It certainly is. But I don't like the fact that the people with all the followers think that they're sitting like on this golden egg that they can just ask for stuff for free and that they're doing you a huge service. It's like, no, I call bullshit on that. I don't see it. So it's and I've been, when I was at Bonnier, there were some people there that spoke a marketing jargon that I don't speak. I couldn't follow it. And I used to always be like, hey man, we're just selling to motorcycle people here. It's like, we don't need to try to make it, sound like we're launching the space shuttle and using all that fancy marketing stuff. To me, it feels like double talk. And I just don't dig it. So I guess like when I think about influencers, I know that they're important. I know that there's a level of it important, but I also feel like it's just not like giving them stuff and they feel like that they're the controlling parts of a brand. It always kind of bums me out. I don't know if I kind of worded that right.
So in your opinion, I mean, if you were an inspiring quote unquote influencer, how could you get an ROI out of something like that?
I think I look at I think it depends on the person, it's like, some people like want to post up pictures of them, like just merely riding. I think you've seen from my social media and my personality, it's like, I like the lifestyle of things. I really like things that I want to see people's smiles with their helmets off. And I had a friend, that Sarah Roth, that I had met. I've actually never even met her face to face. Another one of those social media people, but she posted up like really, really excellent photos. She lived out in Utah at the time, and I would send her like products from MSR, and I'm like, I don't want you like saying anything in your post about that you got this for free. It's like, to me, that feels so disingenuous. It's like, yeah, I got free stuff, you should buy it. It's like, I'm like, if you can just get me like rad photos, you being out there and having like all these thousands of followers like on Instagram, it's like, it just helps bring a visibility. And to me, that was, I just kind of like washed my hands of like any huge ROI on it, and just thought, man, if she's bringing visibility to the product and she makes it look cool and I get bitchin' photos out of it, it was a win for me.
Hey, Jason, I'm going to wrap it up with you. So if you don't mind, would you let our listeners know how they can find you on the web and social media?
Sure. Yeah. I tried to keep everything pretty straightforward. We're called Phoenix Handlebars is the name of the brand. So the website is phoenixhandlebars.com, and the social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, is at Phoenix Handlebars. I appreciate you like let me ramble on so much. Hopefully we don't your podcast doesn't take a considerable blow after all of this.
Listeners, make sure you visit Jason's social media profiles at Phoenix Handlebars on both Facebook and Instagram. And if you're in the market for some new handlebars, phoenixhandlebars.com. Jason, don't worry about the health of this podcast. Trend is to the up and to the right. And credit to great guests like yourself and our amazing listeners for that. And also, Jason, thank you for the generosity. Listeners, check this out. Visit phoenixhandlebars.com, enter the code BEND20, that is BEND20, all caps, and save 20% on any handlebars, crossbar pads, grips, whatever the case may be. Jason will hook you up. You get a great set of bars. You get some great equipment and save 20%. Again, the promo code, courtesy of Phoenix Handlebars, is BEND20. Make sure you use capitals on that BEND part. BendMotorcycleAdventures.com cannot run away without dropping a plug for our website, off-road, dual sport, adventure motorcycle tours here in the Great Pacific Northwest. And we're booked out in April. I've got just a few dates left in May and June. So if you want to get out to the Great Pacific Northwest, do some riding with Bend Motorcycle Adventures, do some training, BendMotorcycleAdventures.com or BendMotorcycleAdventures@gmail.com. Shoot me an email and we'll work something out. We'll work around your schedule and we will make it happen. One more time, BendMotorcycleAdventures.com. Just a couple more things here before we go. Don't forget about our social media channels at Bend Motorcycle Adventures on both Facebook and Instagram. Pretty active on both of those platforms. So if that is your preferred method of contact or how you'd like to communicate with me, again, at Bend Motorcycle Adventures on both Facebook and Instagram. Last thing, parting shot. We've got another podcast coming at you 7 days from now. Martin and Verena, World Spins as Fast as We Ride. They're two Austrian teachers who, in their spare time, in their time off, they're riding their BMWs around the world. So you do not want to miss that episode of the podcast. We'll see you a week from today. Thank you.